Thank you, Sultana ma'am. Welcome once again and good morning to all. As Sultana ma'am had rightly said, the new education policy had already given the recommendation that online teaching and online learning should be made available to all the students because that is the future of learning. But then most of us have not taken this very seriously. No doubt, in certain areas, online learning has been adopted as a part of the total learning system. And there were also many courses, of course, that was available online. But at a larger scale, especially at the school level, this was not so. And till I would say March 24th, online learning was more or less like this. We were all like these children who are playing on the seashore. So online learning was like a vast ocean in front of us. And here we were in our physical classrooms, and then we were slightly wetting our feet, enjoying the online learning techniques, etc., or using it once in a way. But never, it was never seriously done at the school level. So there were few bold ones who really took the steps, but most of us, I would say, were like these children, just at the periphery of the ocean, just watching and enjoying. But after March 24th, once the lockdown was declared, things were very different. Well, now the situation was almost like this. Well, here you see all the people are at sea. The shore is no longer in sight. Perhaps you can see some rocky stones over there. But then the beach is no longer visible and all are at sea, which means this requires certain skills. This requires us to learn how to deal, how to float, how to become an expert at handling the situation. One thing we also see here that it is not that we are drowning, no, we are equipped to at least float, but definitely people don't look like experts here. So from the periphery, we are now directly into the online learning situation. We are inside the online learning situation. And this is a real challenge for us. Now, if we see the number of students who are there around the world, it is about 1.2 billion school students, which roughly is about 17% of the world's population. Well, this also does not include the higher learning systems, universities, or even the technical learning systems. We can say that a large number of our population is students. Now let's see India. India has about 260 million school students and about 3.7 million teachers. Now this is also a staggering number. Now all these people in BC, I would say before Corona, they're going to, most of them are going to schools, colleges, in a physical setting. But now that's no longer there. Very few schools are operating as they were operating before the pandemic. Today, most of the schools are contemplating on how to teach online. Now, this large number of people was suddenly into a new system of teaching and learning. So here suddenly children are thinking, where is our school, our friends, our classroom, our playground? And teachers are worrying, how are we going to finish the portions? How are we going to assess the students? What about the assignments? So many things. And parents are obviously wondering, when are these children going back to school? So that is another aspect. Well, while I was preparing this matter, there were a few questions I wanted to ask students. So now we are all into it, into the online learning system. So I asked the students, what's so good? Some of the students, I'm sure some of you will recognize this question. What is so good about online learning? They gave nice, interesting answers. The first word that is very catchy is interesting. I'm sure that word came more often, easy, economical. A lot of good things that we know about online learning and online teaching also. But as we go further, we will see what are some of the difficulties that we face. We all know it is good. There are certain things that we find would be difficult to replicate. That is one of the challenges that we will be facing. Now, online learning is nothing new, let's say. It has been there with us for almost 70 years. So it started somewhere in 1950. Of course, at that time, it was for very elite few, especially for the higher learning systems. Not many people were very keen on it for various reasons, you could say. But then, uh, online learning has slowly progressed over the time, and it has also become a part of our learning systems. But now, it is much more than that. It has actually become the thing. At present, in the pandemic situation, now it's only online learning. But I'm sure even after this situation we cross over, we are not going back to those earlier times. Definitely, our teaching and learning is definitely going to change quite a lot. Now, when we talk about this change, we saw that we were always ready for change, but what was unexpected was the suddenness with which we had to jump into the water. Perhaps we were not really very prepared. And that is one thing that actually is challenging for the teachers, or rather worrisome for the teachers. Because no teacher is ever prepared to go to class without preparation. As we all know, the amount of preparation that goes into giving a lesson, into teaching, no matter how experienced you are, there's a lot of planning and preparation that goes before the actual classroom that is happening. Now we have already seen this. There was another question that I asked students. How do teachers maintain the interest of the students in the class? So they gave, various techniques engaging the student. Think, pair, share is a technique that we use. And of course, there were other activities, creative activities, using videos, games, etc. A lot of interesting things can be used by the teacher. And why does the teacher use all this? Now, I have about 25 years of experience as a teacher educator. And almost always, students have told me that, ma'am, it is not the technology that is important. It is how you interact with the students. That is more important than the class. How we students interact with each other, that is also very important. Because a lot of learning takes place because of the interactions. Actually, because of the interactions, what develops is a kind of synergy in the classroom, which comes because of the interactions that goes on. And what happens in the class is a kind of motivation and an enthusiastic classroom environment that actually supports learning. Now, definitely, as a teacher, I'd be wondering, will that be possible in a virtual classroom? So again, as a teacher, I am thinking, no matter what technology as I use, how am I going to develop this? This is again one more challenge that we are having in front of us. So how can the synergy that we created in the physical classroom be translated into a virtual classroom? But is it pertinent to think about that now? Perhaps it is more important to think about how we can use whatever is available to us and make the best of it. So what is available for us? The technology. And we can say that the technology is the elephant in the room. Well, whether we like it or not, the elephant is already there. And we don't know how to push it away. We will have to live with it. So which means the best way for us would be to tame it. Now how to tame it? Well, there are many ways and means for taming it. So that is what we teachers are good at. So we need to tame this elephant in the room, that is the technology. And we know that once we tame it, it is a gentle animal. And definitely the technology is going to enrich our teaching, our learning, our evaluation and assessments. So therefore, one of the most important thing that we are discussing, in fact, this entire webinar is about how we are going to use technology to ensure that we create better classrooms for all. In fact, if technology is used in a good way, even it will be able to create a more equitable society where our resources, where our knowledge can be equally be shared, of course, considering the fact that the digital divide also has to be dealt with. Now, an interesting question that I used, I asked my students, what type of technology have you used in your classroom before the lockdown? Well, as compared to the previous questions, you can see that there are very few answers. That's exactly the thing. We really did not care much about the use of these things. These were only used, the technology, whatever applications were there. It was only used if it was really needed, very much needed. Otherwise, can you imagine allowing a student to use a mobile phone in the class? Okay, laptops were allowed, PowerPoints were allowed. Using mobile phones? No. But now, in fact, for us, most of our teaching had happened on the mobile phone. So things have changed for us in terms of technology, how we use it. Now, as teachers, we are always very familiar with change. So change is one thing that is constant in an education system. So teachers are tuned to change. They know a lot of things change. Syllabus changes, teaching methodologies change. As we see here in this presentation. So here the transition from a chalk and talk classroom to a constructivist classroom. Now this was not a very easy thing. It had its fair share of bumps and bruises. But still, today almost all teachers accept that an activity-oriented and energetic class as compared to the quiet and serious class which was controlled by the teacher is much more better. We accept that an activity-based classroom definitely is the order of the day. So we have moved from a teacher-centered classroom to a pupil-centered classroom where the teacher is acting as a guidance counselor. Now, which means that there is many, here again a question, the challenges that the teacher would have faced while she was doing it. There were many changes in an interactive class, and the teachers did address these challenges. So look at the, challenges of an interactive class, a class which is very active. Maybe students they do not have, much interest. Students are talking all the time. Sometimes even if you're using technology, it might be overwhelming. So there are classroom management. Most of the teachers would say in an interactive class, it's a classroom management that is very difficult for us. But teachers have overcome that. So definitely a transition from a physical classroom to a virtual classroom also will have its fair share of problems. But definitely this is something that a teacher can deal with. And a teacher definitely is going to learn. Here learners, both teachers and the learners are going to learn how to effectively perform in a virtual classroom. So here's some examples I've given of the virtual classrooms. So many applications are available, but we still aren't conversant with doing all this. Perhaps because we haven't been trained enough for all these technologies. If teachers are trained in all these technologies, definitely they will do much better. And in fact, the learning could be much better than a physical classroom also. Now, when we are talking about the transition from a physical classroom to a virtual classroom, there are a number of skills that a teacher needs to have. Now, that is to be developed in a short time. Ideally, teachers take some time, their pre-service instructions or pre-service training. Teachers develop these skills over a period of time. But then given the situation, we have been put into a particular situation, therefore, we are going to develop it in a short period of time. Definitely, it's a tall task, but then teachers will be able to do it. And perhaps that is what our today's webinar is going to do. Some of those skills. Now, my fellow professors, they have actually developed some of those, good lessons with the help of the available technology. They have actually used the most simplest technology that can be used by teachers. In fact, you had seen some of the questions that I had used here today. That is ideal for a classroom. Although I have used it before this webinar started, these can be used while you are in the classroom, just as we elicit answers from the students. It is, these slides were not prepared by me. In fact, these slides were developed by a particular application, which I will be sharing in the last. So this is a small e-skill that I had developed, something new, like how we use eliciting. We ask questions in the classroom and we develop a discussion. Different kind of answers come. In the same way, here students have also given their ideas and the teacher can discuss and develop the lesson with the help of that. So development of e-skills is very important. Now, the application that I used was Mentimeter. So you can go to the site and then you can ask short questions. Now, these short questions can be incorporated into your everyday classroom teaching. Now, you have a platform for teaching, and then here you can ask this short question to even if there are 50, 60 students, they all will be able to give you an answer. And in fact, that's an advantage, you could say. In an actual physical classroom, if 60 children were giving the answer, it would be very difficult. Now, these 50, 60 answers are going to come up on a cloud, and there are different ways in which it is being given. So here we see that, technology does make our life much more easier and interesting. The only thing is we need to tame this animal. Finally, no teaching learning situation is ever complete without assessments. In fact, when the lockdown was announced, one of the most important thing that was being discussed is how are we going to take up our examinations. That was because it was a term end, and all the teachers and authorities were worried as to the assessment and the examinations. Of course, this requires a lot of preparation and it cannot be done overnight. And therefore, there were a lot of glitches. But definitely over a period of time, online assessments will be much more simpler and easier. In fact, our entire assessment systems would go online, which will make it much more fairer, which will make it much more easy both for the students and for the teachers. And it will be more transparent. And that would be very interesting. So my colleagues are going to actually discuss uh, some of these assessment techniques, some of these techniques that you can use in the classroom, like how to make your classroom interesting with different types of animations or a quiz and different sites that they have come across, and the most simpler ones they have actually identified, so that it will be easy for the teachers to use them, and also the various assessment techniques that can be used, which will help us. Online teaching has its many challenges, but definitely all of us are going to make it work better, because as teachers we know that we are going to adapt to new situations, and for our students we always want the best. Now this is an interesting advertisement that had come some time back. Perhaps I would say this was something much ahead of our times, because as you can see in this advertisement, here is the principal of that school using a mobile phone to teach a class that was far away, where he could not accommodate all the students, but he definitely wanted that quality instruction to reach those children. Perhaps today this has become a reality for us, and what an idea has become a brilliant idea, and an idea has become almost a reality today. So thank you, students, and over to Dr. Shahraz Baby. Ma'am will be taking some of those interesting techniques that you can use to make your online lessons much more interesting. Thank you.